Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're tackling a big one of history's most misunderstood books. Really, Sun Tzu's The Art of War. Now, I know what you're thinking. It's this ruthless, hardcore manual for crushing your enemies, right? Well, what if I told you its real purpose is something else entirely? Something surprising.
All right, so let's just jump right in. The popular idea, the myth, is that this is the ultimate playbook for battlefield domination. But could it be the complete opposite? I mean, what if the whole point of the most famous book on war is actually to avoid war? And look, you don't even have to take my word for it. Sun Tzu says it himself, right in the text. This one line, this single idea, just flips everything we thought we knew about this book completely on its head. He says the greatest skill, the ultimate victory, isn't about winning some epic battle. It's about making sure that battle never has to happen in the first place.
And that really gets us to the core of it, The Art of War isn't just a simple how-to guide for generals. It's way deeper than that. It's a philosophical text. The central idea, the real doctrine here, isn't how you fight. It's how you can win without fighting. And to get that, we've got to look at the philosophy that was all around Sun Tzu at the time.
You see, pretty much everything in the art of war comes straight from the principles of Taoism. Now, Taoism is this ancient Chinese philosophy that's all about finding harmony and balance and kind of going with the natural flow of things. So instead of meeting force with more force, which seems intuitive, Taoism teaches you to be more like water, to yield, to adapt, and to use your opponent's own energy and momentum against them. And that, right there, is the secret key to unlocking what Sun Tzu is really talking about.
Yeah, this whole Taoist mindset is absolutely crucial. And to really make it click, there's this fantastic old Chinese story that just perfectly illustrates the whole logic of winning before you even start. So the story is about these three brothers, all of them famous healers. And one day, a local lord asks the youngest brother a simple question. Which of you is the most skilled? Now, everyone kind of figured he'd say himself, right? I mean, his name was known all over the country for these incredible surgeries and miracle cures. But his answer was not what anyone expected. He said, "Actually, my eldest brother is the most skilled." He explained that his oldest brother can see let's call it the spirit of a disease, and he gets rid of it before it even shows any symptoms. His fame, it never even leaves their house. Then there's the middle brother. He's pretty good too. He cures sickness right when it starts, when it's still small. So his fame is just kind of known around the neighborhood. But the youngest healer, the famous one, he admitted, "Me? I have to do big surgeries and use powerful drugs, but only after the sickness has become a full-blown crisis. That's why everyone knows my name." And this is where it all connects back to Sun Tzu. He takes that exact same logic and slaps it right onto military strategy. Think about it. The general who is famous for winning these huge, bloody, dramatic battles, he's like the youngest healer. He's fixing a problem that's already gotten out of control. But the greatest commander, the true master, he's like the eldest brother. He wins so early, so quietly, so subtly, that most people never even knew there was a threat to begin with. He stops the enemy's plans before they even get off the ground. Now that is the highest form of skill. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do you actually do it? Well, Sun Tzu doesn't just leave us with abstract ideas. He lays out a really clear, practical framework for sizing up any situation so you can win before things get messy. He says, before you even think about making a move, you have to stop and deeply analyze these 5 key factors. First up is what he calls harmony, or the moral law. Basically, are you and your people on the same page, fighting for the same cause? Then you got to look at the external stuff, the weather and the terrain, the physical world you're operating in. And finally, you have to look in the mirror at your own side, the quality of your leadership, and the strength of your discipline and organization. So once you've looked at those 5 factors for both yourself and your opponent, you can start asking these 7 questions. And what's really interesting here is notice what they're not about. It's not who has more tanks or who has a bigger army. It's all about who's more unified, who's more capable, who has better discipline, who's better prepared. Sun Tzu believed that if a leader could honestly answer these questions, they could basically predict the winner with incredible accuracy. And often, that makes the actual fight totally pointless. And all of that careful analysis, all that planning, leads to this. Probably the most famous thing Sun Tzu ever wrote. It just sums up the whole goal perfectly. See, victory doesn't come from just having more power. It comes from having more knowledge, a really deep, honest understanding of your own strengths, your own weaknesses, and your opponent's too. Once you have that, you can act in a way that victory is pretty much guaranteed. Okay, so you might be thinking, this is all cool ancient history, but why are we still talking about a book that's like 2,500 years old? The answer is simple, because these ideas are absolutely timeless. The battlefield Sun Tzu is talking about isn't just a place with swords and soldiers. It's any place where people compete. In fact, many people today would argue that the book is more useful now than ever before, especially in the limitless battlefields of the modern business world. I mean, think about it. Knowing your competition, understanding the market, your terrain, making sure your team is unified, and making your move when the time is right, that's basically the playbook for modern strategy. So yeah, today, the biggest fans of Sun Tzu aren't necessarily four-star generals. They're CEOs, they're economists, they're politicians, and top-level negotiators. Really, anyone who has to deal with a complex, competitive world can use this way of thinking to get an edge, and hopefully to do it without causing a destructive head-on clash. But here's the thing. This knowledge, it's incredibly powerful. And with great power comes, well, you know the rest. Sun Tzu's work isn't a free pass to go out and manipulate everyone. There's a final story, a parable, about a character called the Monkey King that serves as this really important warning about using this wisdom the right way. So the story is about this magical Monkey King who gets all this amazing power, but he's arrogant, he's reckless, and he just uses it to cause chaos. He completely messes up the natural order of things in heaven and on earth. So finally, the Buddha steps in and imprisons him under a mountain for 500 years, just so he can think about what he's done. When he's finally let out, there's a catch. He has to promise to use his powers for good. And to make sure he keeps that promise, a wise sage puts a golden ring on his head. Now, this ring isn't just jewelry. It's basically a control device. It represents self-discipline and a moral compass. So anytime the Monkey King is about to act out of pure ego or anger or greed, all the things Sun Tzu warns his leaders against, the ring tightens, causing this unbearable pain. It forces him back to the path of wisdom. And that brings us to what might be the greatest lesson in the art of war. The knowledge in this book, it's not just a weapon to be used against others. It is that invisible ring. It's a tool that gives you incredible strategic power, but at the very same time, it forces you to use that power with restraint, with wisdom, and with the goal of creating harmony, not just winning a fight. To forget that part of the lesson? Well, that's a recipe for disaster. So when you really get down to it, The Art of War isn't really a book about war. It's a guide to understanding the nature of conflict so deeply that you can solve it without ever coming to blows. It teaches us that the greatest strength is often the discipline not to use it. And that kind of leaves us with one final question to think about. Now that you've been introduced to these strategies, this way of thinking, what invisible ring does this knowledge place on you?